Hey everybody, JVD back with a brand new video, and this is a compare contrast similarity difference video between two major games, Magic the Gathering and Keyforge. There's a lot to talk about in a little bit of time. I'm going to try to cover every base in one shot. So for those of you that don't know what Keyforge is, allow me to elaborate. That game recently came out last month by Fantasy Flight Games. It is produced by a man who also created Magic the Gathering. So the biggest similarity is the tie-in with Richard Garfield. This person created Keyforge 25 years after he released and launched Magic the Gathering. Magic was back in 1993, Keyforge is now. But let's go ahead and talk about this because I really want to try to get as much as I can out within the time frame that I have. So the first thing I want to mention, they both are card games. That's pretty similar, pretty obvious. Out the door, get it out the way. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact of what Keyforge can do that Magic the Gathering can't. The first thing is offer unique decks. Keyforge can offer unique decks that nobody else can have, and Magic cannot say nor touch that fact. If you go to a Magic event, be it a PPTQ, a PTQ, a World Championship, a North American Championship, whatever the case may be, you might find, even in Friday Night Magic, you might find many people have the same type of deck or the same exact deck. That is an issue that I've seen at multiple Magic nights at a local game shop that I go to and I attend very often and play games very often at that store. But the fact of me seeing it happen, it kind of blows me away. People are willing to spend all this money on pieces of cardboard to make it look like somebody else's deck because it's a major deck. I've seen meta decking and net decking happening more times than enough in every game. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, DB Super. Guess what? Keyforge, you have no shot to do that. Every deck is specific, every deck is unique, all the cards to it are specific for that deck. Granted, you might have a couple cards which have different purposes in other decks, like I've seen, but your deck is your deck. Another thing that I mentioned, people want to buy pieces of cardboard to fix their deck or make it look good. How about in Keyforge? $10 will get you a deck of Keyforge, guys. $40 will get you 4 decks, 2 main starters, and 2 unopened decks, as well as your tokens, your keys, your amber, your damage counters. You will also get your chain trackers, your chain tokens to see where you are. You will also get your stun cards and your plus power cards. You get a lot of things in a $40 box, and trust me, I already got one. I'm probably going to be getting a second one just because I like the amber, and you can't have enough. Technically, I don't think you can actually have enough amber in the game, especially with the way me and my friends play. We get like 6-7 amber in one turn, if possible. But the cost of Keyforge is explosive. You can buy 3 decks for $30. And you'd have 3 different decks that you can call your own. Nobody else can. That is insane, okay? Now, granted, it's a Fantasy Flight game, so they had a little bit of a problem for the people that pre-ordered. And my friend Scott Garibay had a problem with his pre-order, but he eventually got it, all 10 of his decks, and he has several left. He's still using the one main deck that he likes. So am I, and my fiance into the game as well. She likes the same deck that I play, so I normally switch up and play another deck every so often. But that's a huge thing because, like I mentioned, you can't meta deck or net deck in Keyforge. You can do it in Magic, and you're going to spend so much money when you can just put your money into Keyforge and play the game. Okay? That's pretty much what I'm saying when it comes to the two games as a differentiation. Almost everything. But I also want to talk about turn order, because that's a huge thing too. In turn order, you have the begin step, which is your untap and your upkeep and your draw phase. Your main phase 1, your combat phase, your main phase 2, and then your end phase, which that's Magic. Now, granted, Keyforge has some of the same phases. They have a draw phase, they have an upkeep phase or an untap phase, and they have a main phase. But here is where the differentiation happens again. During the main phase of Keyforge, you can sit there and play your cards. When you play them, after you declare your house, when you play them in your main phase, they come into play tapped. So the same, now another similarity comes into play then. You have to wait a turn before you can actually play them to do anything else. Kind of like Magic. Magic's got the whole summoning sickness idea. This has an exhaustion portion of the game. But during the main phase, if you have any creatures from the house that you called that are still ready, that are able to do what they gotta do, they can reap, and you can gain an amber or any other action. You can fight with them, perform combat, where you both trade off each other's attack points and toughness points, or you don't have to worry about doing anything with them. You can, if they're stunned, you can exhaust them to get rid of the stun, That's a big thing, because they mark it down in Magic to where there's two main phases, a lot like Yu-Gi-Oh, where you can play cards in main phase 1 and play cards in main phase 2, but when you get done main phase 1, you gotta go straight into combat if you want to even do combat. This one, main phase, is combat, reaping, playing cards from hand. And again, that's a big thing, because there's no specific combat phase in Keyforge, because sometimes you don't even want to do combat. You're going to focus on tapping your cards and reaping to get amber to help you forge your keys later on in the game. Alright? Also, the untap step comes after everything else is done, right before you end your turn. And you draw your hand back up to 6 at the end of every turn, unless a card, either your side or your opponent's side, forbids you to do that, or you have chains on you. And I'll explain what chains are in a minute. But they both come after everything else, as opposed to before everything else, like Magic does. Also, in the game of Keyforge, there is a point called a chain. I just mentioned it. What chains do is limit your hand per turn for a set number of turns. People can bet chains in the beginning of games, or chains can be caused by card effect. And what that does is you must draw down to 5 cards, okay, or as many cards minus cards that you are chains. But at the end of each of your turns, after you draw, you lose a chain. And when all your chains are gone, you can go back to 6. One thing that both games do have is a mulligan rule, and that is kind of the same idea. You can mulligan your hand till you have the cards in hand minus 1 fewer. So if you're playing a game and you go first and your hand stinks, you mulligan your hand. Instead of drawing 7, you would draw 6. And if you had 6 cards in your hand, you would draw 5. But again, that's something that, is common for both games. I'm just going to take that and move it out the way and just tell you briefly about it. One of the biggest things that Keyforge has that I like is the fact that the player base is so accurate. It's not even a joke. What do I mean by that? Well, my friend Scott, again, I'm going to mention Scott because he's a good friend of mine. He makes great videos. He said on one of his videos that people that have learned to play Magic can easily learn to play and get into Keyforge. And he is not even close to wrong. He is completely right. People that have played Magic and that have played DB Super and other games that I know can get into Keyforge completely quick. And guess what? Like I mentioned earlier, for that $10, have a deck ready to go. Bing, bang, boom, out the door. Have a good time. The only issue with that, or exemption to that rule, is if you bought multiple decks and you give them out as gifts, or you just give one away because it's a better deck or it's not as good as your deck. You get my point. But the big fact is, with Keyforge, there's so much more you can do. It does add strategy to the game, but at the same time, the players that play this game have not been able to play that long unless they sat there from day one, got a deck, instantly knew it, front to back, back to front, left to right, right to left, every single card effect, and can play it with their eyes closed, which you can't do. Another thing I want to bring up with that is that I've seen people stop playing Magic, learn to play Keyforge, and not even touch their Magic decks. At the one FLGS that I go to, the same one I've always attended, the number in players for Magic, be it modern or standard, has declined a significant number. It has not gone up, it has gone down, it has declined. That is huge. That is like, I can't believe that. You hear that, you're like, what? But this game has been out since '93. That's a good point. But it took Richard Garfield 25 years to say, this is a problem, get rid of it. This is a problem, I'm getting rid of it. These two things, they're gone. See ya. And people that know Magic are starting to follow Keyforge. And it's pretty amazing to see. My friend Scott mentioned it's either going to be a ripple or a tsunami. Well, guess what? The wave for that tsunami is coming. It's starting to make its way into a giant wave, and when it comes in, Magic, in my opinion, will be in serious trouble. The reason why I'm saying this, the fact that there's so many different things Keyforge can do, the uniqueness of decks, the cost of the decks, the fact that you can play the decks over and over and not have the same outcome in any way possible. Like you can in Magic. Same deal with Magic, but with Magic, again, you're net decking and you're meta decking. You've seen all the decks before. Just get rid of that idea. The fact that the outcomes are different in every sense of the word is huge. The fact that Fantasy Flight Games can help produce this game, huge. The artwork on the cards, perfect. Beautiful. I like the fact of it. The fact that there are 7 houses you can control, you get 3 per deck. That's pretty cool. You might find a house you might like. Like my favorites are Disc, Shadow, and Logos. Trust me, one of my least favorite is Mars, but that's beside the point. The fact that you have so much in Keyforge you can grasp, you can't grasp that much in Magic. You can grab this much in Keyforge, this little bit compared to this. Magic, Keyforge. Magic, Keyforge. Anyway, the entire point I'm trying to say, I think Keyforge is a much better game than Magic. While there are similarities between the two, such as the decks you play with cards, which is a complete obvious one. You know, there are some certain things in turn order that are there. There are some things in, you know, combat that are there. You know, the fact that you guys have different things that can happen. You know, the fact that you gotta wait at least one turn, because if you're readying your guys at the end of your turn, then you can attack with them next turn if they're still there, and you call that house. There are some things like that. But as opposed to Magic the Gathering and, you know, the biggest other problem that I'm knowing, you choose a house at the beginning of your turn in phase 2. If you can't forge a key, well, after you forge a key or can't forge a key, phase 2 is you choose the house. And you're limited to those cards in your hand of that house. You can't be mana flooded. You can't be mana screwed. There's no way that you can play Keyforge and go, well, I just got mana screwed. Or I got mana flooded, creature screwed. Nope. You made the call. You choose your destiny. You play your hand the way you have it. And that's a big thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm able to bring it up now. That's the biggest difference between Keyforge and Magic. Keyforge is you can choose the house. You can then set up what you want to play. And you don't have to be worried about being mana screwed or mana flooded to play it. Biggest thing right there. So I cannot wait to see more of Keyforge coming in. I will have more videos soon. We're getting close to my birthday, which reminds me I'm going to bring out a Deal or No Deal game on my birthday. It's going to be pretty cool to see. I can't wait to show it to you guys. It'll be the board game version, but we're doing the current version of DOND 2.0, so there's going to be counter offer and all that good stuff. But also I'm going to bring games of Keyforge onto the channel. Remember, I'm changing my name. I can't change it on YouTube, but I can change it here in videos to JVD Studios as of January 1st, 2019. Keep that in mind. Again, I think Keyforge is going to be great. It's going to be a tsunami rather than a ripple. If I missed anything, if you guys out there that play Keyforge, if I've missed anything that you think I should have brought up, put it down there in the comment section down below. Also, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell to be a part of the notification squad. Every time I put out a video, you guys will know about it. Thanks again for watching. I'm Johnny V. I'll see you next video. And remember, stay awesome. And until I see you next video, which will probably be after the holiday. Well, before the holiday, but then after. Have a safe and happy holiday.